Now that's significant. The Market Research Podcast.
Hi everyone, thanks for joining us on this latest episode of Now That's Significant, a market research podcast. This is your host, Michael Howard, the Head of Marketing at Infotools. Today we're joined by Pam Goldfarb-Liss, President and Big Brain of LitBrains-Igniting Ideas, a full-service qualitative research agency. Pam is a 25-year plus veteran of qualitative research, consultant and moderator who has moderated and interviewed kids and teens from now 3 generations, Millennials, Gen Z, and now Gen Alpha. Her many years of experience includes work with subject matters that range from soda pop and hamburgers to diabetes, urinary tract infections, and hospitals. Pam loves the never know what's coming next insights that come from not just working with this growing demographic, but understanding the context and impact of their ideas and needs. Thanks for joining us on the show, Pam.
You're welcome. That was a lot to say. You got it all down.
Oh, thank you. It's going to be interesting to talk about this today. So what is the most significant thing you're going to share with us today?
Well, it really matters to me that we don't see, this is one of the most important demographics. These are our future consumers. And there's a lot of long-term impacts that we have when we talk to them as market researchers. Kids and teens are consumers, but they're not mini consumers. They are there's a lot you have to do to make it a success with them because they're not like adults. They're different.
I mean, they're when we think of consumers, those consumers are often customers as well, but kids and teens typically aren't customers yet, are they? So they're a different category.
Well, I would argue that they are customers. They just don't have the wallet. They just take the wallet from mom and dad, but they are customers. I would even say, like, even the car purchase for the family is dictated by the kids. There's a lot of research that supports me on that. Big purchases the kids are the major decision maker, believe it or not.
Well, fascinating. So we haven't talked about this on the show before, so I'm curious to hear what you've got to share. At a high level, what is it that draws you to the conclusion of promoting the necessity of including the younger generation in our market research efforts?
Well, I think I just said it, the kids are not small adults, but they really require age-appropriate questions and that are based on their abilities to reason. They're growing up. I mean, they don't reason in the same way you and I do. And I just saw a lot of people doing what I call talking heads. It's what we're doing right now. Kids can't have that kind of conversation. They're just, their little brains aren't able to sort of, if you have a kid, I think you do, I think you have a couple of kids, and 3 of 3, they're not going to sit unless it's not really entertain, but it's really engage them. And I think there's lots of ways that we can do it, and shame on us for not making those efforts, because kids are not mini adults. They are their own people. And I think it's really important to make the most out of them. There's smarter ways to ask questions of kids. And I really made it my mission since I started, since the 90s, to really look at kids. I've been working with kids for that long, and really to look at kids and what works better in the focus group with them. Kids need activities that take like similar questions you'd ask an adult, but just in a different way so that they can really answer it. For instance, if you ask a kid if they like candy, it's just going to be a yes, right? And then they're going to go off to something else and they're going to want that candy. Instead of asking them first to draw out the many reasons, they're just take a piece of paper and draw the many reasons you like candy. And then they can talk through why they like candy, the different reasons they like candy, instead of just asking them the question. Have them just make it an activity and make it more engaging. I really feel like there's lots of ways you can turn clients' learning objectives into productive sessions with kids. And I've been doing it for 30 years, 25, almost 30 years. So
nice. Well, I'm just quite interested. 3 generations of kids. What differences have you noticed across each of the generations? Because obviously different time and place now.
Yeah, I mean, I think social media has definitely had its impact. I can see that. There's a lot more that kids can do now, and their opinions, they really feel like their opinions matter much more than, the millennials, for instance. But the millennials really think their opinion matters too. I think that the big difference with the millennials, when they were growing up, I think they were empowered with a lot of, the whole thing that, everybody gets a prize. That was really the millennials that I dealt with often. And so I sort of engaged them in that kind of those kind of award-winning activities and things like that, so that nobody left the group without being recognized, all that stuff. Gen Z doesn't need that. They need to feel like they really contributed, but they don't need the awards. They just need recognition, just a simple, yes, that makes sense, or those kinds of things. Gen Z really wants to contribute. There's a genuineness about Gen Z, and they also want, they really want to be authentic, and Gen Z also susses out when you're not authentic, I might add. They can tell when there's something else that's not transparent. They want everything to be on the up and up. And I would say, as I'm learning Gen Alpha, because Gen Alpha is still rather young, they're 12 and under, I'm seeing Gen Alpha really need community. Community is a big deal for Gen Alpha. So, in a group setting for focus groups, they're the ones that really work together. It's just wonderful. And they're building off of each other's ideas a lot more than Gen Z or millennials had. Millennials really needed that individual recognition. Gen Z wanted to know that they were doing things correctly, where, Gen Alpha really wants to work together. And, it's kind of beautiful. Yeah.
Do you have any hypotheses as to why you think Gen Alpha needs to work together? Is it the size of the family, how that's shrinking, why that's possibly there?
So I don't know. I don't see the size of the family shrinking in the kids that I've been talking to lately. I see kids from really big communities, big families rather. And what's really interesting, I mean, families of 3 or more, like your kids, Michael, I might add. They're also, I think it might have been the pandemic. It might have been a reaction to the pandemic that they need that community, because that's what they sought online. And, honestly, if they were an only kid, they were able to reach out to their friends much more easily. There were a lot of kids that were underage doing TikTok. but I think they need community more after the pandemic. That's my theory.
Okay, so children and teens are in that nebulous place of being under 18, which means they're governed by stringent and ever-changing privacy laws. What can we as market researchers do to respect these laws in kids in our research projects?
I have been screaming this from the rooftops actually since the 90s. So this is not new for me, but the laws are new. Under 18 the parents should be a part of the process from recruiting. The parents are the first people we talk to, and then we talk to the kids. We talk to the parents about usage and, and household income and all those kind of things. And then we go and talk to the kids, confirming usage, confirming like, dislike, and into articulation and things like that. But that's important. Also, parents should be a part of projects. I really believe, I truly believe that parents are our partners, and I can't say that enough. I've been screaming it from the rooftops, and that's how you get around the under 18 thing. And a lot of people are afraid of that. And actually having parents a part of something increases participation. It increases the quality of connection, and it also helps the kids feel more comfortable, which is part of the connection, I suppose, but feel more comfortable giving you more of themselves. And frankly, things get done because mom and dad are right there. I mean, I love working with mom and dad. I get rich stuff.
I mean, because you almost have two separate research projects going on there, don't you? You get the kids, but you also get the parents. So do you use both of that that coming through in your projects?
I do. I have little tricks. I mean, I pay the parents slightly less because it's the kid that's the respondent, but I like to really make them the parents sort of sit and literally sign them in.
Yeah.
So when they when they log in, the parent has to approve it. So there's a button every single time they log on. And then also that's for virtual and I have actual, like, if there's 4 activities for a kid, I'm going to have 1 activity for the parent every day, so that we get sort of that. But if it's in person, I might have the kid, the parent, like I'll meet them in the lobby and I'll give the parent what I call a lobby exercise. So while the kid's in the focus group with me, the parent's filling out things about the household usage, what's happening at home, that kind of stuff. So I have some context to what the kids say, and that always helps me, because sometimes you don't know why the kid said something, and you can see it's because the parent doesn't like peanut butter, and so they serve sun butter or something like that. You can see that because the kid's not going to tell you the whole story. And then also I tend to have exercises where sometimes the parents can come see what the kids did at the end of the focus group. That's also a wonderful way to get their opinions at the end. If I'm developing a new product or things like that with the kids, or testing something, it's always fun to see the parents' opinion. So I find a way to get the parents in there because they're there anyway. They have to be when they're in person at a facility. And then online, if I'm doing a virtual focus group, I might have the parent come at first, sign them in, say hello, and then go.
Yeah,
but
nice.
I always allow them to stay within earshot too, because I don't want to. I want to. Again, it's about being transparent, especially important with Gen Z, and I think Gen Alpha too. You just have to be transparent. And Gen Z is becoming parents, so we're going to have to be even more transparent.
Nice. So picking up the point you raised about the importance of partnering with parents, in what ways can we bring parents into our kids and teen projects? So you mentioned a couple of them. Are there any other ways to do this, and maybe expand on why it's so important?
I think it's really important. And there's lots of ways to do it. I mean, I do things like, even in a focus group where the parents are not a part of it, I go outside to the lobby and I introduce myself, so that the parents know who I am and they see I'm not a scary person. It also helps the kid feel more comfortable because they see me. And I also do things like, if I'm doing an in-home, I might create a package that is sent out to the consumer before I arrive, that has my background, a picture of me. It's kind of a funky picture where I'm like this, something fun. They can see that I'm not scary, and the parents also know my background, and so that when I show at the door, they know who I am. That's really helpful. Those kinds of things, just making you seem more accessible, is kind of the theme of the kind of things that I do for parents, and bringing parents a part of the focus group. So the other things, if they to be a part of the focus group, I might do simple exercises, like, if I'm doing an in-home, for instance, having mom and dad just, bring something to the kid that they might have forgotten, or have the mom and dad tell us one thing that they like about the subject matter. So if I'm doing television shows, what's the one show that you like that the kid watches, at the end of the focus group, so that we can sort of connect them, and then the kids can tell them what they learned. Those are different ways that the parents feel like they're a part of it. We're getting the context of the kids' contributions, and then the parents, know that we didn't show them anything violent, or, that kind of stuff.
Oh, cool.
Yeah.
So, I mean, it is a great idea of bringing parents into the study, even in that supportive role. So on a similar tangent, what tips would you give market researchers about how kids and teens can feel more comfortable inside interview or focus groups?
It's so important. It's really important to give them different ways to feel comfortable. So kids need to be prepared. And if you can think about it, this is their job. They're really, I mean, they're getting paid for this. And for some of them, it's the first time they've earned their own money. And so that's a really valuable thing to them. So treat them, give them ways to prepare, like a pre-work exercise. That's super helpful. And, doing things like, there's lots of different ways where you can have, some kids are quieter than others, especially in a focus group room. So give them different ways to talk, basically. So if they aren't able to talk right away, have them draw a picture. That's a different way to get kids feeling more comfortable and talk about the picture. A lot of the different exercises that I do, sometimes, I'll write a discussion guide that has 3 different ways that they could express themselves. So if I walk into a room and there's more quieter kids, I'm going to have them draw first and then talk. But if they're more active kids, I might have them, do something like a scavenger hunt kind of thing, where, there's different things in the room, and have them go and grab them. Just find something red, and we'll talk about that and introduce ourselves, so that we can kind of get their, there's a Yiddish word, spielkas, but they're ants in their pants, ants out of their pants, so to speak.
Yeah. Cool. So I do like this idea that kids and teens can be more engaged with multimodal contributions, including pre-work online, mobile exercises, in-room connection points as well. So how fun to have them do a quick scavenger hunt. It's pretty cool. Can you share any unexpected insights you've observed from watching some of these icebreaker activities?
I think it was a funny one. I had the kids bring in, it was for a soda pop. And it was a soda pop company that was trying to move into water and diversify. And I had them bring their favorite drink. And so that was the pre-work. That was something that they brought to introduce themselves. And there were 3 buddies. I did a friendship trio. And one of the kids was very excited about his drink, and he couldn't wait to do it. But he was so excited he had to stop himself by holding himself down, and he wound up breaking the drink, the conveyor, and it wound up when we were sort of in the discussion about why it's his favorite. He said he didn't like the bottle because the bottle always broke like it did for him. And so it was because it was sort of something, it was part of the introduction, and it wound up creating, I don't know if you guys have them in New Zealand, but he said he never drinks the whole one, and he wants it to reseal, because it was a soda pop can that, sort of it was aluminum, and it whatever, and that was always open. There was no resealing.
Yeah.
And this is, a long time ago. This is maybe 10, 15 years ago. And he said those half pint, have you ever seen those half pint water bottles? That was sort of the beginning. That was his idea, this kid's idea, which was really fun. Yeah, it was really fun. So that's sort of that was my most fun insight, because it was literally the kid getting so excited about his drink, and it broke. It was in a glass bottle. That's why he liked it. It broke, and he liked it because it resealed, and then he created something smaller. Yeah, it was very cool.
Yeah, nice.
Yeah.
So I understand you've created an online learning resource called Mission Kid Possible, that's available at litbrains.com. Can you share what this is and how you've seen it implemented or implanted?
Sure. So I have been teaching some of my favorite moderators from all over about working with kids and teens since 2012. And when COVID hit, lots of changes happened in how we taught this course. And I realized that this course really was better if we could put it in digestible, what I call kid-sized workshops. So I'm slowly putting the course, dividing up the course, and different things that come up, different ways to work with kids. We have one coming up that's all about Hispanic kids and getting them to feel more comfortable in the focus group room with my super friend, Hispanic moderator, Cynthia Tello. So I'm sort of looking at different ways to build a nice library for people to go to and learn about how to work with all sorts of kids in all sorts of different ways. And that's my idea. My next one's going to be about moderating with a global team for kids. I also, have one up about partnering with parents and the reasons why, and lots of different tips, even more tips than I gave today. So I have a lot of different things up there. I have 5 sessions right now, and I hope to have more. I'm going to work on 4 a school year.
Nice.
Yeah.
So we've talked about why you think younger generation are good research respondents. Like adults, though, it can be hit and miss in terms of the value you're getting out of them. Are there any special things you can do to help kids be more articulate, who can contribute more age appropriately to your learning objectives?
Well, I mean, I mentioned about preparing them with pre-work. I really feel that that's a nice way to make them more productive. But 90% of your success is the recruit, is who's going to be in the room. So I really spend a lot of time on articulation questions and creativity questions. So I might ask them a question about if you were to create a recipe for your favorite cookie, what would be inside that? What ingredients would you put inside that recipe? And I will tell you that kids make some pretty good cookies. And they're not with typical things like flour and milk. I'll tell you that much. I don't know if you can tell, I don't really make cookies, but because I don't think milk goes in cookies.
No,
but you drink it with. But kids do some really fun creativity exercises, different ways. I do everything from, like, if you were president, what would you decry, what would you make so that every citizen could do, or something like. If I just make up different sort of creativity questions that would show how a kid thinks, as well as, like, how they sort of work on the top of their head. And I make sure that the recruiter writes this verbatim as much as they can, and you get a real good sense of who the kid is. There also are real awesome tools now where you can have kids do videos, video articulation questions with recruiters, and those have been really helpful. I've had great success with those videos, with how to make a cookie and those kind of questions.
Very nice. It's quite funny. Sometimes my wife and I will play the children, and we'll let our kids play the parents, and
That's
it's just
awesome.
It's so funny to see what they say and they do, and how much they mimic like us, but the good and the bad as well.
They got you. It's always fun. The stuff that I hear about the parents sometimes is valuable. Really funny.
That's right.
It's all done with love.
Yes, of course.
Yes.
So you said about articulation. Are there any other rules that you have put in place in terms of finding good young respondents?
Yes, thank you. Yes. So I always talk to the parent first. Again, the parent is your partner. I always make sure that the kids are using it. The parent is the best assessment of whether their kid is able to feel comfortable with you. You're a stranger. I mean, you're a safe stranger, but you're still a stranger. So I always talk to the parent also about things. I mean, there are so many things with kids nowadays, especially post-COVID, ADHD, things like that. I do ask those questions. Does your kid have a problem sitting for 45 minutes with a teacher or a stranger, those kinds of things, just to make sure that the kid can actually stay still or sit with me, and those kinds of things. I used to have a Hardstead rule about homeschoolers, because being social is a really big thing for me, and I ask questions about kids' involvement in things outside of home. So if they're involved in drama or debate or a sport, those are really important things to show if a kid is a sociable kid. But I think homeschoolers now are part of, again, it's Gen Alpha, part of communities, and they're doing a lot of things outside of home now too with other kids. So my rule about homeschoolers went away post-COVID, but I do think that I to ask the question of things that they do outside of home, it's really important. And the younger kids especially, I make sure that they're in a nursery school or a daycare situation, because I do as young as 3 and 4, and the kids that are with a nanny are unfortunately not ready to talk to me until they're in a real school.
Okay. And that's an interesting point in terms of representation. So, like, have you found some things that work better? If some kids appear sociable at the start, but then they're not necessarily in when you actually get around to it?
It happens every now and then. I've done this long enough that I do kind of know, what makes a good kid, and obviously ingredients include sort of their activities and their parents' assessment of them.
Yeah.
I think that's kind of that's a really important thing. But the parents sometimes don't know their kids as well as they should, or they really want their kids to be a part of the focus group. So it's also important to really partner with your recruiter and have your recruiter, trust your recruiter to make some judgment as well. Yeah.
So just jumping back to the 3 generations that you've been assessing and market research with. I'm from New Zealand, and we've got the Dunedin study. It's a longitudinal study that's been going for 50 years.
Wow.
So the same cohort of people, they've been following them through. Do you do anything along those lines with your respondents? So tap into them as they go through, as they age?
I haven't, but that would be super fun to do. I mean, yeah, that would be super fun to do. Now with privacy laws, I don't keep that information of my respondents. I used to have communities, but it's something that I think there are professionals that are better at that than me.
Yeah.
Just because of all the laws and things like that. But that's an interesting idea. That's a very interesting idea. I haven't thought about that, but over the years, it's my assessment. I've seen the kids. Millennials, it's not surprising how they are as parents right now. It doesn't surprise me at all. So I remember going on focus groups with millennials as they first were having babies, and doing the sort of gender, making sure that everything was gender neutral, all the gender neutral colors, all that stuff. And it doesn't surprise me what's happening now with the younger Gen Z and Gen Alpha with gender fluidity and things like that. So I think you see it coming. But yeah, that would be really cool to do a longitudinal study. You gave me an idea there, Michael.
Yeah. Well, even if as part of your recruitment, you say, would you be open to future studies, and then you could try and capture it that way.
It'd be very cool. Yeah. And keep it. That's a great idea.
So lastly, any advice you have, or important steps we should do to ensure a best possible interview or focus groups with kids and teens?
I think it's really important that you work with the parents through recruiting, include them in on what the activities are going to be, any sort of letter or any sort of kind of clue about what they're going to be covering, so that they can feel that they're trusting of you, that you're a trustworthy person. And then also, spending time with the kids before you get into the subject matter, to really set the stage for anything goes. Like, you're not like their teacher. You're very different. You are somebody that really wants to listen to them. I think, especially with Gen Z, the teens that I'm seeing, but also with the younger alphas, just knowing that they're being heard is such a big deal to them. I mean, heard and paid, but I think the biggest thing is really, they just want a voice, and it's a big deal. And they really know that they're important consumers, because they're on social media. They know their voice is important, and they like being a an adult respecting them. And if you can keep that in mind, I think you'll do very well for with your kids, but also just understanding that they're not adults, and every exercise should have multimodal response opportunities so that you can take advantage of all different types of kids. You know, could they draw it? Could they write it? Could they talk it? Give them all 3 opportunities.
Yes, it sounds like there's some lessons that we could apply with adult research projects as well.
Yeah. Oh God, yeah. Yes, definitely. Yes.
Cool.
I love this. This was fun.
Yes. So thank you so much. Any final words before we close, Pam?
I just hope that people respect these consumers, because they're not mini consumers, they're real consumers. I mean, they have a lot of influence on big things. I said the cars, but also like even, you know, food and the choice of restaurants and the choice. I mean, kids are important parts of the family and they make major decisions. They may not have an actual pocketbook, but moms and dads are listening.
I was just thinking of something earlier in the show. I mean, millennials were digital natives, and Gen Alpha are sustainable natives. And so I see that in my kids now through what they're taught at school, etc. as well. And they're far more sustainably focused than we are. So it's something that we're adapting to, but for them it just comes natural, which is really good to see.
In everything. I mean, it's not just recycling and
right.
and all of that stuff, but it's also just thinking long term about everything that they do. I think it shows sustainability shows up in their whole mindset.
Yeah,
I agree.
It's fascinating to see. So thank you so much for joining us on the show today.
Thank you. It was fun. It was fun to meet you too.
Yes. And a big thanks to listeners out there as well. If you have liked what you've heard today, feel free to reach out to Pam at LitBrains-Igniting Ideas. Feel free to subscribe to the podcast, share it with others, or even leave a review. We'd be very grateful for that. So until next time, thanks for listening to Now That's Significant.